Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Sixth Canto, Chapter 16. So, Narada Muni, through the voice of the dead child, or through the body of the dead child, his voice, has relieved the lamentation of Chittiketu by showing the illusory or ultimately insubstantial nature of material sambandha, or the mamatva that informs our sense of material sambandha. I think we left off in verse 12 where we stated, when the conditioned soul, the jiva, and the former Maharaj Chittiketu's son has spoken in this way and then left, Chittiketu and the other relatives of the dead son were all astonished, naturally. Thus they cut off the shackles of their affection, which was due to their relationship with him, and gave up their lamentation. So it appears that they were pacified. All right, next verse. After the relatives had discharged their duties by performing the proper funeral ceremonies and burning the dead child's body, they gave up the affection that leads to illusion, lamentation, fear, and pain. Such affection is undoubtedly difficult to give up, but they gave it up very easily. So the power of his preaching. Tatya jur dushta jam sneham shoka maya bhaya artidam. So dushta jam sneham, the very difficult to give up sneha, that was given up. This sneha is the cause of shoka moha bhaya artidam. It gives distress, fear, illusion, lamentation, bewilderment. So they were able to give it up by the strong preaching of Narada Muni and through the voice of the jiva. So we were asking the question, we posed a question that if the nature of material relations is just to culminate in sorrow, then what is the point of having affection for anyone? This is one of Kritaduti's arguments to Providence, when she was cursing Providence. If Providence, like a childish boy, is bringing people together, allowing them to develop friendship and love, and then after separating them capriciously or whimsically, then why bother developing affection for anyone? This question was hypothetically brought up in the commentaries. Rather, we should just cut off the affection. So that's a good question, actually. If material affection is the cause of so much sorrow in this world, why bother developing the affection? So this, of course, is thinking of Gyanis, those who are nirvina, manasa. Their minds are completely disgusted with material affairs. So they will think like this, no affection for anyone. In fact, when Krishna was asked by Arjuna, what is the speech of someone who is situated in samadhi? There, Arjuna is also telling about the speech. That his speech is the speech means how he responds to life situations, either within himself or if asked by others, what sort of response he gives. What does he say? And Krishna's also included what he does not say in verses 56 and 57 of chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita. And part of the verse of what he does not say, it is mentioned there that he is without affection. Anabhisneha. He is without excessive affection. I think that's how the commentators choose to comment on it. Or he's without affection for, the material relations and so on. So again, it's thinking like this: we want to avoid the sorrow, so then no affection is developed. Devotees, of course, we take a different approach. Of course, Sneha Pashanimam Chandi, also Queen Kunti is praying to Krishna to cut off the material affection. But that is not to become devoid of affection, but to direct affection towards the true. The true means that which has no absence of being. So that refers to God, that refers to the soul also. So instead of directing affection at the material bodies, affection can be directed at what is truly abiding, which includes the soul. And how do we show affection for the soul? Through material apparatus, like the psychic body, the gross physical body. So that material effect, that affection is demonstrated through Harikatha, Harikirtan. This is how we show love to the soul. Guhyamakati Prachiti, Shabir Bhaktir Prasiddhiti. What is that? Shakriti Vidhi Lakshana. Anyway, I'm messing up the shloka text for it. Ubhadashamrita. Affection for the soul is shown by the distribution of Harikatha, or that power that can help souls actualize their true potential and divinity. So mine is that sort of affection. All other forms of affection just culminate in the sorrow. So that form of affection directed at material bodies, that was given up, that is said here. All right, so the next verse is speaking. Queen Kritaduti's co-wives who had poisoned the child were very much ashamed, and they lost all their bodily luster. While lamenting, O king, they remembered the instructions of Angita and gave up their ambition to bear children. Following the directions of the Brahmanas, they went to the bank of the Jamuna, where they battled and atoned for their sinful activities. They battled and atoned for their sinful activities. The co-wives had lost their bodily luster, and though this way they revealed that they had killed the child. This is what our commentators said. And so they were advised by the Brahmanas, headed by Angita Muni, how to atone for the killing or murder of the child. Of course, Prabhupada takes the opportunity to speak about child killing and how it is so much prevalent in the world, especially the postmodern world, how abortion is going on. He takes the time to speak out against that. So Prabhupada is very clear on that subject matter, which has become such a hot topic today. It is very sinful, obviously. And when a woman does that, Prabhupada chooses to comment on this, when a woman does that, she loses her luster, her effulgence by such an atrocious activity. And so this is how the co-wives reveal themselves to everyone that they had done. And then it seems that they admitted to it. According to Vishwanath's commentary, they admitted to it. And so they were given advice by Angita Muni how to atone for the sin. Okay. So thus enlightened by the instructions of the Brahmanas, Angita and Narada, King Chitraketu became fully aware of spiritual knowledge. As an elephant becomes free from a muddy reservoir of water, King Chitraketu came out of the dark well of family life. Okay. Next verse. These verses don't have commentaries. The king bathed in the water of the Jamuna, and according to prescribed duties, he offered oblations of water to the forefathers and demigods. Very gravely controlling his senses and mind, he then offered his respects and obeisances to the sons of Lord Brahma, Angita and Narada. Thereafter, being very much pleased with Chitraketu, who was a self-controlled devotee and surrendered soul, Narada, the most powerful sage, spoke to him the following transcendental instructions. So now Narada Muni is going to give a mantra again for him to chant and absorb his mind. Previously, it was mentioned. Previously, these instructions, as far as the flow of the Lila is concerned, the instructions were there to remove the lamentation, because it is an anga of bhakti. And I often like to mention this: out of the 20 doorway angas of bhakti, there are 64 angas of bhakti mentioned by Rupa Goswami. Of these 64, only 25 are considered like critical or crucial. In other words, if you miss other angas, that is not considered a discrepancy. But these 25 angas, one cannot do without. And those are the first 20 angas of bhakti, called the doorway angas. And then the 5 most potent forms of bhakti, as you know, sadhu, sangha, nam, kirtan, bhagavat shravan, mathura vasa, and sri murtaya seva. So these 5 are most potent. Those constitute bhakti proper. And then you have the doorway angas of bhakti. So the doorway means that which is facilitating the healthy practice of bhakti proper. So one of those 20 angas is that one should not be overwhelmed by a strong emotion such as lamentation. To which Rupa Goswami quotes a verse saying that So long as the mind is gripped by strong emotions, such as lamentation, etc., then where is the room for Mukunda to enter such a mind? I should learn that verse because I often have to bring this up. So it's not possible the essence of bhakti practice is remembrance of Krishna. Vaidhi type or Raganuga bhakti type. Smartavya satatam Vishnu, vismartavya najatuche. And Vaidhi bhakti means the bhakti that is upheld by vidhi. And the essence of all vidhis is to always remember Krishna. That is the essence of all vidhis. If you follow that vidhi, all vidhis have been followed. And the essence of all prohibitions, nisheda, is not to forget Krishna. If that prohibition is followed, then you followed all prohibitions. This is according to Sri Vishwanath's commentary. Similarly, if you break this vidhi and you forget Krishna, it is like breaking all the vidhis. And if you transgress this prohibition, that is like transgressing all the prohibition. This is according to Sri Vishwanath's commentary, which honestly seems a little bit heavy, but in any case, he makes this point. So this is the essence of Vaidhi Bhakti, remembering Krishna. Essence of Raganuga Bhakti also, Krishna Smaranam Janam Chashya Preshkam Nijasamita. That you are to remember your dear Krishna. That is Krishna, your dear Krishna as friend, master, lover, child. Whoever form of the Godhead is Preshta, dear to you, to remember that, dear Krishna. And the same spirit or bhava of that devotee whose bhava you hope to embody, Nija Samihita. So that's the essence of all bhakti, actually remembrance of Krishna. So if something else is taking the center stage in the contemplative life of remembering Krishna, then where is the room for Krishna? So therefore it is considered as anga bhakti to not allow the mind to become fettered by strong emotions, such as lamentation, etc. So when that happens, you obviously need a little assist. So Angita Muni is given that assist, Narada Muni is also given that assist in removing the lamentation. And now that the psychic realm has been opened up to receiving something greater, now Narada Muni gives the real substance of teaching, which is a mantra by which he can remember Krishna. So that is mentioned now in these next several verses. Om Namostubhyam Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Pradumna Nya Nirudhaya Nama Sankarshanaya Namo Vijnana Matraya Paramananda Murtaye Atmaramaya Shantaya Nivrita Dvaita Drishtaya. Okay, translation. Narada Muni gave Chitta the following mantra: O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, who are addressed by the Omkar Pranava, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. O Lord Vasudev, I meditate upon you. O Lord Pradumna, Lord Aniruddha, and Lord Sankarsana, I offer you my respectful obeisances. O reservoir of spiritual potency, O supreme bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are self-sufficient and most peaceful. O ultimate truth, one without a second, you are realized as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and are therefore the reservoir of all knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So in this verse, in the next verse or two, they're saying the mantra is indicating the distinction between God and the jiva. First of all, the glorifications of God, meditation on God. Dhimahi. Satyam param dhimahi. Vasudevaya dhimahi. So this dhimahi means this dhimahi is a reference to the Abhideya. What is the Abhideya of Srimad Bhagavatam? It is actually dhimahi. Absorption in or meditation on the personality of Godhead. So the first verse is the mantra by which that meditation is accomplished. And the second verse, again, same thing is going on, obeisances, but he's indicating, I guess, adjectives that distinguish this Lord from the jiva, and therefore why the Lord is the proper object of worship. So the verse is Vijnana Matraya, one who is covered by Vijnan. So Vijnan here means the Sarup Shakti. This according to the commentary. Vijnana Matraya means one who is covered by or Sarup Shakti exclusively. He's exclusively of the substance of Vijnan, or illumination, or enlightened knowledge, enlightened wisdom. It is reference to Sarup Shakti. Whereas the jiva is covered by Ajnana, he's covered by ignorance. So that is the difference between God and the jiva, major difference. Because God's form is, by the Sandini part, Sandini Shakti of the internal energy. His whole form is internal energy. And the nature of internal energy is it keeps Maya away. Mayam Yudhyasa Chit Shakti. The Chit Shakti cannot come before the Swarup Shakti in the same way that darkness cannot come before the sun, the light of sun. But that is, the light of the jiva is very small. It's like being in a dense dark forest with a lighter and trying to illumine the path with a little lighter. What illumination is coming? It is swallowed up by the darkness. So the jiva's light is like that, a very infinitesimal, and therefore can be covered by darkness. So that is one difference between Bhagavan and the jiva. Vijnana Matsaya. The other is Paramananda Murtaye. His form is itself supreme bliss. What is the form of the jiva? The material forms that they occupy are Nirananda. There's no Ananda in them. Therefore, they're suffering. We talked about this many times. Because the Lord's Murti is Paramananda, so no unhappiness of the material energy can come to him. This is why, in a sense, he's unable to empathize with the plight of the conditioned souls. Whereas the Murtis of the conditioned jivas, their Murtis are Nirananda, they're full of suffering. Asana Pikleshada Asadeha, the bodies themselves give so much misery. So there's another distinction between Bhagavan and the jiva. Next, Atmaramaya, one who derives the satisfaction from his own self. So the conditioned jiva is Anatmaramaya. He derives his satisfaction from things external to the self. At least so he thinks. That is not true, actually. But in our illusion, we think like that. So we keep chasing after the external objects. Whereas Bhagavan does not need to do that. So the Hari said, come and join our Nirananda movement. It doesn't have to be Nirananda, but if we don't become Krishna conscious, it is like that only. Now, Abharamaya. Abharamaya means one who is deriving satisfaction from his own self. The jivas do not derive satisfaction from their own self because there's an absence of awareness of the happiness in their own self. And so they try to outsource their happiness by chasing after the material objects. Another difference between Bhagavan and the jiva. Shantaya. Shantaya means Bhagavan is peaceful, means self-situated in his own nature, he has peace. Whereas the conditioned jivas, they are ashantaya. Ashantaya means they having the turmoil inside, the existential turmoil. Why? Because of not being aware of their own self. Ashantasha sukha. And if you're not peaceful, how can you be happy? Peace is a very platform of happiness. You can speak it another way, because in the spiritual dynamism of love, there's a lot of anxiety, a lack of peace, and so on. But we're not talking. That is also the nature of peace. That is rooted in peace. The peace that is the absence of material inebriety. But here in the material world, there's material inebriety, so there are always turmoil inside. And that turmoil externalizes itself as the individual and collective exigencies that you see the world over. Why so many problems the world over? That is just the externalization or evincing of the mental turmoil inside. So God is Shantaya, the jivas are Ashantaya. Nirvita Dvaita Drishtaya, one whose vision is devoid of duality, whereas the vision of the jiva is absorbed in duality. And thus, the nature of the absorption and duality, Dutiya Abhinivesha, is Bhayam, Shoka, Moha, etc. All right, next verse. So this mantra offers this obeisances unto the God. This goes up to verse 25, by the way, this mantra that is given by Narada Muni. So next verse, Atmananda Nubhutyaiva Nyastra Shakti Urmaye Namaha. Rishikeshaya Mahate Namaste Anantamurte. So perceiving your personal bliss, you are always transcendental to the ways of material nature. Atma, Ananda, so the bliss coming from your own self. Anabhutya Eva, certainly you are experiencing that directly. So Nyasta Shakti Urmaye. So you're able to throw off the Urmaye Shakti. Shakti Urmaye means the Maya Shakti. You're able to throw it off. The Jivas, we're not able to throw off the Maya Shakti. That's why even though we hear about Maya Tattva, that is one of the major topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maya Tattva, also perceived in Vyasa Samadhi, so it's one of the major topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Just by knowing about that Maya, knowing about that ignorance, we cannot throw her off. That's why major talking point of Bhagavatam is knowledge alone does not dissipate the ignorance that is due to the Maya Shakti. You may know I am not the body, you may know this is all illusion, but you cannot throw it off. You can't shake it. Just like in movies when we were growing up, you see these like teeny bop movies, and girl falls in love with boy, boy falls in love with girl. But actually, boy and girl, they're very bad for each other, but they can't shake it. They're just always thinking about each other, always absorbing each other. They're not able to shake it. Even with all the knowledge in the world that this is bad, they cannot shake the attachment. So that is due to an absence of the higher taste, basically. Like Krishna is telling Arjuna, that you can abstain from enjoying the sense objects by various principles of knowledge. But rasa bharjan, inside the desire for that is still there. But upon seeing the higher reality, then that rasa bharjan is also destroyed by that. So without that Atma Ananda Anubhut Daiva, without that experience, then you can't just shake Maya off. Those who try to shake off the Maya without that higher experience, they fail naturally. But for Bhagavan, this is a very easy thing. Because he's always situated in the experience of the bliss of his own self. So he's able to shake off or forcibly throw nyasta, the Shakti Urmaye, the Maya Shakti. In fact, it is mentioned in Bhagavatam, she embarrassed to come before him, right? Harishikeshaya, he is the master of the senses, but the jiva is controlled by his senses, moved hither and thither from one body to another because of the senses. Marate means he is very great, being all pervasive. The jiva is very small, being atomic. Namaste Anantamurtaya, he has unlimited forms or unlimited expansions. I forget the contrasting quality here with the jiva. So these two verses are giving this distinction it seems between jiva and Bhagavan. Next verse. Vachasi uparate aprapya ya eko manasasaha anama rupaschin matra sovyam na sarasapara. In the previous descriptions, we were hearing about the Bhagavan aspect of the absolute truth. In this particular verse, it is said that this is the impersonal manifestation that is glorified. So it says that the words and mind of the conditioned soul cannot approach the supreme personality of Godhead, specifically in his Brahman feature that's being mentioned in the verse. For material names and forms are not applicable to the Lord. Here it says, Anama Rupa Chinmatra. He's without name and he's without form. Brahman is without name and he's without form. Of course, Bhagavan is without name when name means material name. And he's also without form when form means material form. Chinmatra, he is completely of spirit. So therefore, he's not able to be approached by the mind and by the speech. Okay. The impersonal Brahman is another of his forms. May he, by his pleasure, protect us. Okay. Sarasat Para. He is beyond cause and effect, etc. All right, next verse. No much commentary here. So this is impersonal features glorified. Now the next verse describes his relationship to the cosmic manifestation. Yasmeni dam yatashte dam tishtat yatyeti jayate. Mrin ma yeshriva rich jatis tasmaite brahmane namaha. As pots made completely of earth are situated on earth after being created and are transformed into earth again when broken, this cosmic manifestation is caused by the Supreme Brahman, situated in the Supreme Brahman, and annihilated in the same Supreme Brahman. Therefore, since the Supreme Lord is the cause of Brahman, let us offer him are respectful obeisances. Okay, the Sakarya philosophy. This is the relationship of God to the universe. From him emerges all life. Upon him it rests, and into him it returns in the end. Therefore, my obeisance is to that ground of all being. Next verse. Next two verses are kind of famous. The Supreme Brahman emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and expands like the sky. Although untouched by anything material, it exists within and without. Nonetheless, the mind, intelligence, senses, and living force can neither touch him nor know him. I offer unto him my respectful obeisances. So this is describing how God is beyond the, how you say, what's the word I'm looking for? The analysis of mind and senses. Basically, he's a dokshaja. So dokshaja means ada akshaja gyan, that the akshaja gyan, the knowledge that is coming from senses, is kept beneath him. In other words, the senses, the mind, are not able to reach to him. So this is being described here. Jnanas krishanti navidur, mano buddhindriya asavaha. So one whom cannot be touched by the mano buddhi indriya, the mind, the intelligence, and the working and knowledge senses, they cannot touch God. Well, that is because he is very far away. Just like now, all of you are very far away from me. So therefore, my senses are not able to really contact you. Of course, through the Zoom. Someone is thinking to the Zoom. Okay, but if there is no Zoom, my senses cannot contact because you are far away. So you may say, oh, because God is far away, that is why the senses cannot contact. So it says, no, antarbahishta vitatam. He's inside everything and outside everything. This resembles Queen Kunti's prayer to Krishna also. One who is inside and outside everything, but mysterious to all. When Queen Kunti says his prayer, it is because Krishna performed his pastime of saving Parikshit within the womb and also saving the Pandavas outside. Simultaneously, he did it, but no one was able to appreciate that. So she's saying, even though you're inside and outside performing amazing pastimes, no one can appreciate it. No one can see it because they're covered. Maya, what is that? Maya jivanikachana, because you're covered by the curtain of Yoga Maya. Naham prakasha sarvasya Yoga Maya samapita. So here, antar bahisha vititam, although you are spread internally and externally everywhere, like the sky. Is that mentioned here, or that just coming in translation? Vyomavad, you're just like the sky in this way. So that the senses can't reach you is not because you are far away. That's the point he wants to say. That the senses can't reach you is not because you are far away. It's because of your nature and because of their nature that it is not possible. So the next verse expands on this. These two verses taken together are a big talking point in the Bhagavad Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami. That's why I said they're kind of famous. He uses these two verses to describe how it is the internal energy that allows for the functioning of matter, without which matter itself cannot function whatsoever. So he quotes these two verses as evidence. The next verse, also famous. I'll just read the English here. As iron has the power to burn when made red hot in the association of fire, so the body, senses, living force, mind, and intelligence, although merely lumps of matter, can function in their activities when infused with a particle of consciousness by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As iron cannot burn unless heated by fire, the bodily senses cannot act unless favored by the Supreme Brahman. So the first line is the material apparatus, deha, indriya, prana, manodiya, etc. This is the material apparatus. Yam angshavita. So yam angshavita means being influenced by the rays of Brahman. Pracharanti, they move. Karmasu, in various activities. So the idea here is that the reason the senses are not able to know Bhagavan is because actually they can't know anything because they're inert. So something that is inert cannot know anything. And so what then to speak of knowing God or the Supreme Brahman? Well, how are they able to function? Well, when they're infused with the potency of Brahman, then they're able to do something whatsoever. Brahman has intrinsic to its Swarup all sorts of Shaktis. And one of the Shaktis is called Kriya Shakti, which is a Shakti that allows for action. And another Shakti is called Gyan Shakti. That is a Shakti that allows for cognition of things. And so the Shakti that allows for the senses to act and the Shakti that allows for the senses to cognize things, that Shakti is ultimately coming from Brahman. Otherwise, it would not be able to act. This is in case of the working senses. And it will not be able to cognize anything in the case of the knowledge acquiring senses without being infused with the light of Brahman. Everything shines after God's brilliance and not before. So an example is being given here in this regard. Or the third line, I should say, rather. Naivanyada loham iva prataptam. This is actually written in the positive in the translation, but it's spoken in negative here. Can iron rod burn without being heated by fire? So it's a rhetorical question. The answer is no. The iron rod cannot burn without being heated by fire because the iron rod doesn't have any intrinsic capacity to burn. But when it is infused with fire, then it has the capacity to burn. So in the same way, when matter is infused by the Kriya and Gyan Shakti of Brahman, then it can do something. Otherwise, it cannot do anything whatsoever. And at the same time, the iron rod cannot burn the fire that is infused it. In other words, it cannot become more hot than the fire that is lended its own quality to it. So this means to say that although infused by the quality of Brahman, still that receiver of the power cannot go beyond that which it has received its grace from. In other words, we cannot know Bhagavan simply by that small portion that has been infused to allow it to function. We can know Bhagavan by another Shakti, another one of his Shaktis, the Bhakti Shakti, in other words. Yeah. So these two verses, we're going to do the last verse here. I just summarized that. And this is the last verse in the passage. O transcendental Lord, who are situated in the topmost planet of the spiritual world, your two lotus feet are always massaged by a multitude of the best devotees with your lotus bud hands. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, complete in 6 opulences. You are the Supreme Person mentioned in the Purusha Sukta prayers. You are the most perfect self-realized master of all mystic powers. Let me offer my respectful obeisances on to you. Here, having spoken so much of the tattva concerning Bhagavan, he speaks something a little sweet in the end. So that this Lord is served by the multitude of lotus-like hands of the great devotees. And the sense here is that he also wants to render service like that, according to the commentary. This is the sense why he's offering his last prayer. Let me also be blessed to offer similar service, where I can massage your body with my lotus bud hands. So he ends it on a sweet note. And that's the end of the mantra that is given by Narada Muni. So a lot of tattva concerning Bhagavan and his nature in relationship to the jivas and the material energy. Kind of straightforward stuff. We'll pause here and see if anyone wants to say anything. Not sure what it means that the Lord protects by his pleasure. It's not mentioned the word to word either. But the Lord protects by his pleasure. Which verse was that we were looking at? He protects by his pleasure.
Text 21.
Text 21.
Yeah.
The impersonal Brahman is another of his forms. May he, by his pleasure, protect us. Yeah, it just says he, Saha Avyat, may kindly protect Naha. Well, they're just asking for protection. I don't know what the pleasure point.
Doesn't it just mean like whether he desires to or not? Like if he desires to, then may he protect us.
That is the sense in which you're taking the pleasure.
That's how, I'm not taking it as like actually like pleasing to him. It's more like
in other words, if you so desire.
Yeah, it's kind of like Old English. Like if it pleases you, like
Right.
if it pleases the court.
Oh, I see.
What
So
about that? Harisham, that seems like a satisfying answer.
yeah, I was just going to say, I guess Mukunda is now on the stance of justifying Prabhupada's English according to his old Victorian leanings. He's like a small brain for a woman, and all of this is because of his Victorian English training. Thanks,
If it
Mukunda.
pleases the court. Thank you, Mukunda, for that nomination.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Shivani Agarwal. When it says Shivani Agarwal, which one is that? Is that Sham Saki or Sham Gopia?
Prabhu, this is Saki. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Sham. I switched out. Sometimes I say Sham Saki, sometimes I say Sham Gopia. I'm not sure.
I forgot
Okay.
to change the name on the when I joined.
So the example you shared about iron rod is not able to burn anything unless infused by the fire from outside, and the rod can't gain more power than what is given by the fire. Can you please elaborate on how Bhakti Shakti would fit in this example? It implies we can only go to the level that Bhakti wants us to. Well, yeah, Bhakti has degrees also, right? It is not just like a generic category. Or you can say within the genus or general category of Bhakti, there's degrees of intensity. That is what we're informed from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right? He says Bhakti has 3 degrees of intensity: sadhana, rati, and prema. And then within prema, there are even more degrees of intensity: sneha, mam, pranaya, rag, anurag, bhava, mahabhav, most intense. And with the mahabhav, more degrees of intensity. So Bhakti Shakti has these degrees of intensity. So according to the Bhakti infusion that you get, then according to that, there will be realization of Bhagavan. I always quote this verse, you must be knowing it well by now. So that is what Bhav Bhakti, or essentially that is what Sadhana Bhakti is all about, right? We've heard, first of all, we've heard. First there's Shruta, you've heard from Guru, from Shastra. You've heard about this world of Bhav, spiritual world. You become attracted to Bhav Bhakti, a particular type, and you perform your whole sadhana to receive the gift of that love that is most attractive to you, right? That is the meaning of Nija Samihitam in the verse Krishna Smaranam, Janam Chashra, Preshna, Nija Samihitam. Your whole sadhana is meant to essentially build a container so you can receive that love, which is most attractive to you. And that love has a different intensity. The love of the Vaikuntha Vasis is different intensity than the love of Brij Vasis. And within Braj, the love of the Gopis is more intense than the other Brij Vasis, and so on. And all of that is Bhakti Shakti only. So in that sense, it works, you can say, similar. That you can't, you won't love outside the degree of, you can say, infusion that you're allowed to love. Or not allowed, that's not the best way of articulating. It's not so poetic either. Your love allows you to appreciate to a certain extent. Just like, for example, Bhishma, when Bhishma in his prayers, he glorifies Gopi's love to receive their blessings, because he knows their love is greatest. Everyone knows their love is greatest. The women in Hastinapur, Queens in Hastinapur, they also glorify the Gopis' love to receive their blessing, because they know their love is best. Uddhava also glorifies the love of the Gopis, but none of them wanted to change their rasa because of it. Their love, in a sense, determined the limits of what they really appreciate about Krishna. That's still not the best way of articulating. There are better ways of saying this. But I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I'm not empowered to say it better right now. So we say it like this. So your question was, Ilari, how Bhakti Shakti would fit in this example? It implies we can only go to the level that Bhakti wants us to, right? But the level that Bhakti wants you to means the level that is congruent with the Bhakti. So there's a perfect coherence in the spiritual world between Bhakta, Bhakti, and Bhagavan, right? So the reason there are so many varieties of forms of the Godhead is because those forms are perfect have perfect coherence to the type of love of that particular devotee, which is all, of course, beginningless and endless. So the form of Varaha and the bhakti for that form of Varaha, they're perfect coherence there, and so on for all the forms of the Godhead. So the type of bhakti shakti that you're infused with by grace will determine the limits, if you will, of appreciation of that unlimited Lord. That's the best way I can say it right now. I'm saying something I'm doing better than that. But part of bhakti, the impersonalists can access, because as we know, they also need support or bhakti to perfect their sadhana. So, at best, sadhana bhakti. Well, it depends on what you mean by impersonalist. If the impersonalist gets the association of a bhakta and he still has attraction to that feature of the Lord, he can go up to the Shantarasa. So this is coming in many comments, especially Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Otherwise, if they don't do offense to Bhagavan, but they're still attracted to the impersonal Brahman, then it is sadhana bhakti that will take them to Brahman, to the Sayuja Mukti. It is that sadhana bhakti that will take them there. After they give up avidya by Shakti, and they give up that Vidya Shakti, and then by sadhana bhakti, that will take them to Brahman realization. As Krishna has also told in Bhagavad Gita, Mam shayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sabuna samiti taitya brahma bhuyaya kapate. They attain that Brahman by avyabhicharena bhakti. That means sadhana bhakti. So at least that degree of intensity they can have. And that sadhana bhakti takes them to Brahman. If they get good sadhu sangha, then that sadhu sangha may allow them to develop shanta rasa or higher rasas depending on the power of the sangha that they get. So all these things explained nicely or succinctly in Sri Vishwanath's commentary to Gita 1854, 1855. You can go and study a very nice analysis he gives there. So we can check that out. So other questions there or comment, just an observation. It's hard to simultaneously be cognizant of someone's position and identity, and also the feeling that one has for them. I'm reflecting on how to pray with someone again. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's always true. For example, if your feeling is reverence, that means you're acutely cognizant of their position. And that acute cognizing of their position is causing a feeling of reverence, which itself causes a little bit of distance. But in the case of more intimate relationships, I can see what you mean. That in the case of more intimate, like friendship or brotherhood or romantic relationship, then that can supersede the appreciation of their position. Like Arjuna is praying, oh no, Krishna, I'm so sorry, I treated you like my friend, but you're actually the Godhead, and please forgive me for that mistake. Of course, that is a glorious thing in the realm of perfected devotion. And in the realm of practiced devotion, that is also okay. And also not a problem. You know, these 3 verses, you go and study them. 11 Canto, chapter 11. I think the verses are like, okay, so it's 32. I think the verses are like 30. It must be like verse 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. 5 verses. So 33, 32, 31, 30, 29, yeah. These 5 verses you're going to study. So they're giving degrees of greatness of devotees. Sat, Sattama, and Sattara. Oops. Sat means, devotee, basically. Sattara means greater devotee. Sattama means best devotee, highest devotee. So the 29, 30, and 31 gives 3 verses describing all the wonderful qualities of devotees. And these are considered as the neophyte devotees. You go and read the list of qualities and you're like, wow, this is pure. Those are the neophyte ones. And then the Sattara, higher than that, is a devotee who realizes the value of these virtues and realizes the fault of not having them, but he does not care. He just surrenders to Krishna. He's even greater. And then the greatest devotee is mentioned in verse 33. where Krishna says he may or may not know who I am, know my position, but he just worships me with affection. This is the greatest devotee. So I'm not able to give a full analysis of this verse right now. I have to integrate it also. But I guess the point that I'm making is that even that is okay. You're not fully aware of the glory of God in terms of all the tattva, but you just worship him with affection. So you see this in Brij Basis and Braj all the time. If you're going to ask them some philosophical question, what they will know? Probably many of them not be able to tell you anything. Of course, the Goswamis in the temples, they are great scholars, many of them. But if you see the common people there, how they worship, like Govardhan, for example, when we passed by the temple in Jatipur, like that area, and the way they worship Govardhan, they're like so eager to pour milk on Govardhan. They're like practically fighting with each other. And it looks so wild and like, kind of like ghetto, like calm down, like just line up and be calm about it. They're so eager to worship Govardhan. And if you go to ask any of these devotees some heavy philosophical question about, Krishna Tattva, this and the other, what they'll be able to tell you, they'll say, this is my, my Lord or my, my beloved. They just have affection for. So that is also liked by Krishna very much. There's no fault there. Because we coming from the West and out of ignorance, we have to take a different path on the way towards affection, which involves, getting like the tattva gyan in order, because we have so many doubts, and is Govardhan really God? It's just a rock, and we have all these sorts of issues that they don't have. They don't have these sorts of issues. So we need all that tattva gyan to help us to move towards that reality with affection. But once you have the affection part, that affection can cover everything. That is also okay. And you may not have outward appreciation of the glory of God in that sense, but your appreciation is still on par with the appreciation of those who have that knowledge, because it's forceful, it's genuine. In fact, it may be even more forceful. I don't think I'll push someone out of the way to worship Govardhan, but these people are ready. Or Mahaprabhu Lila, when the Mahaprabhu was taking darshan, and the old lady just climbed on his shoulder, and Govinda is like perturbed how this lady just climbed on the shoulder of the sannyasi. And Mahaprabhu glorifies, man, if I had this much eagerness. Many times the way we absorb tattva gyan, as I've been saying a lot these days, it like mutes eagerness. It becomes like muted. Now we have to be like cultured and calm and collected and sober. I'm very sober, and there's no passion, no juice. Whereas this lady is just climbing on the shoulders of a sannyasi because she's just so eager to have darshan of the Lord. Which one is better? Who knows? Who can really say? We're not promoting being ignorant, but we're just saying that there's a glory in just affection. And the tattva gyan is meant to bring us there only. So it may not be necessarily a fault that you don't always appreciate in all the detail the glory of God. Of course, for us, it may be required because we have doubts of a Western nature, having had the misfortune of taking birth in the Western world. Even if you were born in India, you're born in the Western paradigm. So we have to, the tattva gyan becomes important for us. So you wanted to say something? I'm done.
I was just saying thank you. That was amazing, and this verse is really sweet.
Yes, example of Shukadeva Goswami, who was in Impersonalists Association of Vyas, that's a good one. Even gopis knew Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. They talk about him being Ram and killing Suparnika. Yeah, Sri Vishnu gives a beautiful meditation on that. When the gopis are with Krishna, they don't know that. But when the gopis are separated from Krishna, and that separation is like the blazing sun. So when the sun is blazing, two things happen. First of all, you become super hot. And the other thing is illumination is everywhere. So in separation from Krishna, they feel the burning sensation of separation, and then illumination of all of Krishna's glories comes to their mind at that time, not when meeting with Krishna. So whenever they meet with Krishna, they don't speak like this. But when the separation from Krishna is there, then the illumination of the burning sun of separation gives them the insight of Krishna Tattva. So they appreciate his tattva more in separation than in union, so to speak. So when you're connected with someone, it's hard to keep up the momentum. And I'm saying that is not a fault. That may also be a glory. Of course, in the material world, it turns into a fault. Familiarity breeds contempt and all that. So I'll be careful there. All right, Siddhartha, you just want to say something? I think I saw the thing in the chat box.
Hare Krishna. So first of all, I think we should move your time back again. It's already 9:23, and I haven't posted my question yet. I think we have truncated the time of the class. Previously, it used to be from 8:15 to 9:30. Now it's become 8:30 to 9:30. Lost some time there. A couple of comments. One, I was wondering that Narada Muni is also in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, Srivas Thakur. Why would he teach these prayers? I mean, they are like very reverential mood, and when he can give more, why doesn't he give more to?
What do you mean? Is Narada Muni Bhakti not in reverential mood?
Sorry?
Narada Muni's Bhakti is not reverential Bhakti?
I don't know.
Perfected his
He's
Bhakti
also
through Vaidhi. He was a Vaidhi sadhaka.
Uh-huh.
So that means his bhava, his prema is Vaidha type. It's called Mahima Gyan Yukta Prema. The prema that is linked to the glory of God, Mahima. He is also Ragatmika devotee insofar as his very being is composed of the attraction to Bhagavan. But that prema is of Mahima Gyan Yukta type, because he came through Vaidhi Bhakti, right? That we learned from 7th canto, and also his life, past life as sadhaka. So it makes sense that he will give a mantra that is like this.
But he's also said to be incarnation of Srivas Thakur, isn't in Mahaprabhu's Leela? Okay,
so
I mean, I was not aware of Vaidhi Bhaktas in Mahaprabhu's Leela. Those were serving Mahaprabhu.
There's so many. What about Murari Gupta? And then there are a few others. Anupam, the younger brother of Rupa Sanatan. There are a few of them there. So because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, and all forms of Godhead reside in Krishna. That means all forms of love are reconciled in Krishna or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They all are compatible with the Lord in that sense. Otherwise, you can say here, the Shritaketa Leela is happening before Mahaprabhu Leela. So maybe if he met Narada Muni and Gaur Leela, then he would get another mantra. But he met before Gaur Leela, so he got this mantra.
Okay. And then after that, I was also wondering that in regards to these prayers, it seems that, this is a mantra he's supposed to meditate upon. The first few verses are just basically describing the position, Sambandha Tattva of the Lord. And then the final is like really a prayer where he's asking for service. Whereas, when in some sense, like the mantras which we receive, they're directly a prayer. It's not that we chant, a bunch of different prayers in our chanting of Hare Krishna. Before that is hey, Krishna, you are this, you are this, you are this, and then Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Well, you can do. Why not do? You can also do. Instead of just rolling out of bed and like, oh, it's late. And no reverential stuff, no. It's like you've not created the space. Actually, if we follow the morning program, then the morning program is meant to create like a container for chanting, japa, right? So there's so many songs that are actually sung first. A song to Gurudev, then a song to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then maybe ideally a song to Radha and Krishna. And now having prepared the psyche, then chant holy name. That is healthier sequence. Of course, because our relationship with japa is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Utilitarian. And we kind of take this, just got to get it done, spirit. And so we may, wake up like, oh, my schedule, I'm behind schedule, and we run and we're just going to start, like, I get my rounds done. And so then we haven't really created the space for chanting japa or for offering a sincere prayer. So ideally, if we follow the standard of prayers in the Bhagavatam, most of the prayers you'll see, the vast majority of the stutis, Krishna Lila is a little different, but only a little. But the vast majority of Lilas, there's many prayers offer first this glorifying God. That is the first step. You're acknowledging the glory of God and your gratitude towards that God who has provided everything. No, series of prayers. There'd be many prayers like that. Then afterwards, they may be an expression of dainya, of inability to appreciate fully, to grasp that fully. And then after that, they will make the request, because every prayer has some requests in it for sure. But you don't jump straight to the request. First, you glorify God. And then after that, you show some expression of wretchedness. They're called dainya bodhika, some expression of wretchedness. Then you ask for your gift, what it is that you're seeking and praying. Not that you just jump straight to this one I want. So maybe we can take note of this. And we studied this Mana Shiksha. So he was telling what we should do. First, there should be worship of Guru and Vaishnavas and Gora and Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan Dham first. Then after that, you do your meditation, your bhajan. So we follow that sequence, then it would very much echo the sort of sequence that we've encountered here in these prayers.
Thank you, Boo. Another thing I wanted to ask was, I think we have been discussing this last week classes, and you mentioned regarding this, specifically tattva, and how you mentioned the story of this old lady who climbed on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's shoulders and wanted to eagerly see Lord Jagannath. I was hearing this lecture recently by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and he was talking about the glories of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he mentioned that before Bhaktivinoda Thakur, people were aware of Mahaprabhu's stories through Chaitanya Bhagavat, but not really the philosophy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was saying that's why there were so many upper sampradayas. And so I was wondering that, what's the role played by tattva in terms of, not keeping the deviation on track, so it doesn't become an upper sampradaya. And what's the role played by that tattva, how much of that is needed in terms of I mean, who doesn't like stories of Krishna? Who doesn't like story of Mahaprabhu? And if all the classes were just stories of Bhagavatam, of Mahaprabhu and Krishna, would that be all right? Or do we need some philosophical presentations also, which gives the science or the tattva behind it?
I would say, learning tattva is for the pleasure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just like before, people would come to Mahaprabhu, they would write the poetry, but it had to be, vetted by Sarv Damodar, because if there was anything that was oppositanta, it would cause Mahaprabhu to become angry or become disturbed. Just like if your eyes didn't have any eyelid and all the dust would just come inside the eye, it caused big disturbance. So Sarv Damodar was like the eyelid. If anything was oppositanta, it would, shut, and you couldn't get interest to Mahaprabhu. He would not hear such poetry. So in that sense, we learn tattva for the pleasure of Mahaprabhu and for the pleasure of Bhagavan. But our approach may be, properly informed. Our approach to that reality can be in a way that is pleasing to that reality. For that reason, we bother to learn philosophy. That's my answer to that. That is why we learn the tattva. Otherwise, it can be misinformed, and that misinformed means our approach will be necessarily misinformed. And that way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pleasure will not be had. Maybe it is not displeasing also, but maybe you don't catch his pleasure also. So in the spirit of pleasing Mahaprabhu and pleasing Krishna, so we learn tattva will play an important role in that regard. Like this, I don't know if I have a better answer to that right now. That's how the inspiration is coming at this particular moment.
Thank you, Boo. That's it.
Okie dokie. We'll continue the Naradiya Gopi. This is a nice question from Siddha because it brings to light so many pastimes in the CC. When lack of tattva angered or upset the Lord, like when his servant thought Krishna was dancing in a lake, or his conversation with Rupa Sanatana, right? Good one. Yeah, well said, Ayeshan. Yeah, what is that? Siddhanta Bhavya Chitte Nakara Alas. Krishna na ihai age. What is the second line? I always forget. And Kaviraj Goswami said, don't be lazy and understanding the Siddhanta, because this will cause your mind to become attached to Krishna. So that is the purpose of understanding Tattva, that mind gets attached to Krishna. Not that you can argue this, that, and the other, but to create attachment, the right sort of attachment, the attachment that inspires the Lord to reciprocate, and so on. So, yeah, therefore, we study philosophy for pleasing Krishna. But again, if you don't get any feeling from that study, then you have to maybe reevaluate how you're studying. If your study just like finds you just arguing with the other devotees about who's got the right siddhanta and all that, but you're not actually getting any feeling for the reality, for which the tattva is simply to kind of give a container for the feeling to come for that reality. And we might reevaluate how we're receiving that knowledge. So that is my question to Bhakti Vigan Maharaj also. I said, how do you receive knowledge in such a way that it doesn't mute the fervor for reality? Because you think that you know it. Oh, I know the truth. I got it in the palm of my hands. It's not mysterious anymore. And so therefore, there's no feeling for it.
Hey, how did he respond?
He said, it was a very good question. And he said, I also don't know the answer. he didn't say, I don't know the answer, but he was like, this is a very good question. And then he was like, yeah, it's very true that you could just learn so many things. And by learning, you think that you have the truth when you don't actually have it. And yes, very good question. And that was it. We didn't, I was like waiting for, I was like, so are you going to answer? Or like, and then it was like, he said, I'm also like that. Cause he said, I like very much knowledge and I get, I like to analyze things. I get a lot of appreciation for that. So he kind of made fun of himself a little bit and we laughed and then he just didn't go on. And then after that, he said, you want to see the property? So then he took me for a long walk on the whole property that they're building now at Govardhan. This big property is there. So he showed us around the whole entire property afterwards. So he didn't get answer, which is also good. That is also an answer. That this question you have to maybe sit with and investigate. Otherwise, you become very expert at breaking everything down, but you don't have any feeling for that reality, no fervor for the reality, because you think that you know it or you understand it or whatever it is. Interesting. Are you saying something? You're muted. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I was just saying that this reminds me of the question you asked Shivram Maharaj like almost 10 years ago. He also said the same thing. This is a very good question. Similar, right? You were asking him like, how do you actually cultivate attraction for Krishna? Along with having all this gyan. And Maharaj was like, yeah, this is what we should be discussing. And then something similar, he was like, yeah, good question.
Yeah. So we're etavadeva jignasam, tata jignasanatmana. I like to quote this verse from Chatushloki. So here, you are to inquire or investigate up to the point of the experience of the rahasya. Etavadeva. Certainly up to this point, you should ask the question. What point? The point of the experience of the rahasya of the previous verse, which is prema, basically. So, yeah, unless we're having the aesthetic feeling of that reality, then our investigation is not yet complete. So, and these questions that come up, it's good to not have answers to them, honestly. Some questions are meant for us to like toil with for some time and to really seek the answers to them, in a genuine way. Otherwise, like now, this again is part of the issue that I'm bringing up. Because everyone has so much knowledge, we know everything. So you ask some question and immediately some answers coming. There's no mystery. Everything is known, everything is clear, everything is perfect. As if God is such a reality that you can just grab it in your hand and just explain it away. Maybe some things are meant to be kept mysterious, and so that the mystery pulls you in deeper and deeper, away from the starting point of the comfort zone and the secure world into the unknown world where everything is like chaos, but where your potential can be actualized there. So yeah, it's good to have questions like this that don't have the answers that you're looking for, just like ready and so I had a question, but here's the answer. And then just like, okay, thanks. And then carry on with your life as is, unchanged. No fervor, no mystery, no energy for that reality. So it's good to have questions like this that we don't really have immediate answers to, and that we have to really seek deeply. And it is a great blessing actually to have such questions. I always feel like before I joined Christian consciousness, I had so many questions that I felt like I needed the answer to. It was like a need. Then after coming to KC for so many years learning philosophy, yeah, I'm good. Now I'm good. Everything's clear and no fervor. Now the fervor is only for asat. And no fervor for the true reality. So that is not very good. So these sorts of questions are a great benediction in life. I found some answers, but there are a lot of answers that I have to investigate, a lot of questions I need to investigate. So we should pray for such questions to come to us, the question that we don't have answers to, but we feel that we can't live happily without an answer to that. The question is a great benediction in life, actually, honestly speaking. It'll help you move deeply in your journey. Okay, have a great rest of your day. See, sometimes the classes are still going on the same amount of time, so don't hurry. So, sorry, Tatsat. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for continuing to be my guardian angels. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jaya, Go Premanandi, Hari Bolo.